Hello, YouTube. I'm Peace of Wolves, back again. What I'm going to talk about today is the two types of veterans that you are likely to encounter. There may be more, this is a complicated issue, but if you want to generalize things, because it makes life easier, there are two different types. The first type of veteran, you'll recognize him easily. He will undoubtedly have multiple bumper stickers on the back of his vehicle relating his past military history, his accomplishments, what his job was, which wars he fought in, it's common nowadays that most veterans have served in more than one. They'll wear, clothing that makes them easily identifiable to the general populace about who they are and what they've done, and how important it is that they've done these things. I'll get to that in a minute. But then there's the second type. I became familiar with them while I was serving, because these two types, they don't usually begin this way. Usually most people go into the military as, just who they are. And then through training, force of discipline, experience, that's why they train you, because who you are is not good enough for what you need to do. There are things that need to be taken out of your who you are. You're always going to have attributes that do not fall in line with total cooperation and total dedication. It's like marriage. Some things that are part of you just do not jive with this relationship. So as I was saying, the second type, they appear chaotic. They appear unstable. This type I'm speaking of are essentially the people who see the way things are and have a very difficult time dealing with it. But they deal with it. You see, when you find yourself pulling what's left of a friend of yours out of a ditch, and in order to pull him out, you have to reach inside of his chest cavity to grab something to hold on to, and after the fact, when you're picking up pieces of him and shoving them into your pockets so that there's nothing left, you only have so many choices. There's only so many ways you can deal with something like that. Now, I'll return to the first group, the ones that I call the All-Americans, aka American Sniper types. I don't know, I just wanted to throw that out there. They go through this transformation, as everybody does through traumatic experiences. But I find it much in tune with people of religion. I once heard this story. I'm not gonna, fact check it, look it up, find out about it. I don't know if it's Iraq, Afghanistan, probably not Afghanistan, but it was some Middle Eastern country where these Muslims were on this pilgrimage, and they're on this bridge, and somehow a fight broke out, or something disturbed these people, and it created, a riot, essentially. People were just trying to run, get out of the way, get off this bridge, and apparently it trampled a lot of these Muslims, so a lot of them got just crushed to death by their fellow human beings. And afterwards they interviewed some of the people, and they said it only strengthened their belief in God. Now, this is like, I guess, this is much akin to a wife cheating on their husband, treating them like shit, or a man beating his wife constantly. It is beyond me to explain how these people become more dedicated to the object of their service, or the idea in which they are in service of. So some people, the first group, the All-Americans, when they go through these events, they can't... It's not easy to grasp why these things happen in the world. It's hard to grasp because the reason... It's not beneficial to know, to completely understand reality. It's not beneficial to you as a human being to know that your clock is ticking. If you look over your shoulder at any point in time, you will see the Grim Reaper somewhere off in the distance. Sometimes he gets close, sometimes he's far, but he's always going to be there. It's not really beneficial to you to be constantly doing this. So what these people do is they pick a direction and they never look outside of that. Because it makes it easy. You don't got to worry about why were we in Afghanistan? Why are there civilian casualties? Why did I have to pick up the guts of my friend? Why do the people in this country not give a shit about murder, torture? I mean, torture is something I'm going to make a video about because I can't fucking understand torture. I mean, some people, you have to kill them. It's like a rabid animal. If your dog goes rabid, you may love your fucking dog, but if it's fucking rabid, you don't have any options. You don't have any option. Let me get back to this. So, these all-American types, they embrace the view that the general populace has. The people who watch the news every day, whether it's Fox, CBS, they all kind of paint this picture of, how an American soldier is and how great he is, and they totally remove the human aspect. Like, they say, this man is a hero, but they totally remove, like, they make soldiers into Superman, but we're not. We're not one-dimensional. We don't have simple needs. We're not simple creatures. In order to do what we do well, you have to be a really complicated and reflective person. You have to have empathy to be a professional at what these jobs include. Now, the second group, the people who the truth has their way with them. That day long ago, in the year 2011, I could feel connections in my brain disconnecting. I have this image of that scary monkey from Family Guy with the knives. Well, two of them just running through, my cortex, just because things didn't add up anymore. In a fucking instant, so much of my worldview, maintaining it would not make sense. And having so much of that happen in one instant, I felt like the ground was vibrating. I could feel memories just blinking out of existence. There's so much of my life that I have no memory of before my time in the military. There's just so much it's gone. I have to have people tell me about it. Some of them, yeah, they do sound familiar, but a lot of the things that people tell me about, it's gone. The memories are gone. So this second group, we come off as very hostile. We are very, very unstable. By nature, I should say. Our nature changes when we incorporate these things. We become a reflection of the world around us. Just like the ocean can be nice and smooth, and there's like this tempo, this music that's occurring, and then the next minute you think all hell was about to just, all hell was about to break loose. And the reason for this is I'm not simple. I've had this argument with one of my psychology teachers. I tried to explain to her that human beings can want two things on the same scale. Like some people, this is the easiest to describe in relationships. Some people want monogamy, they want that one and only person, but then they cannot help but want everybody else at the same time. Keep in mind, I'm only using, this is the type of scale, they're very, two different things, two different choices over one issue, totally relatable, but the human mind can want both equally. And maybe she doesn't have this problem, but when I started restructuring everything that I knew, I became very, like I said, chaotic. It's like, you hear about those people who go 0 to 60. I can go from being a gentle guy, a guy who helps give food and water behind my command's back to children that are starving and, thirsty, and I can help a child and his family's, remains out of the side of a collapsed building due to an IED, or vehicle-borne IED. And I do these things because I believe human beings deserve the best. I do have a general love for serving other people. I've never viewed myself as anything other than a servant and a student. But when you get brought into the real world, where you have to deal with the threat of death at every moment. I used to hear this bullshit about, before I had fought, that, I had this one soldier tell me, he's like, oh, I only give my second a moment to be scared, and that's right before we leave the wire. That's the only time I give myself a moment to be scared. And I have to tell you that I legitimately thought I was going to die every single fucking day. Pretty much constantly. I was terrified all the time. I mean, maybe, I was in a leadership role. I had to think of what could happen and what I would have to do. So that requires definitely this type of thinking that leads to chaos. Like I was saying, I've had people make piss poor attempts on taking my life, and I would have the opportunity to kill him, and I wouldn't, because over there, it's like a show of manhood. A young fucking teenager fucking pops over, sticks a gun over a wall, pop, 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 and then just takes off. Like, he never had a fucking chance in hell of hurting anybody, but he wanted to do it because he wanted to look like a man, and maybe somebody in the Taliban's town council made him do it. Like, that's how it is over there. And if that was the reason, because people have tried to kill me many times. I mean, anybody who's been on a rough deployment knows that, you stop counting. In the beginning, we counted how many rounds, how many firefights, and then after a certain point, it's just I don't fucking know. It was a lot. I know which weapons I didn't use. I know what things I guess that, I don't know how to go further into that, but I could be very generous in keeping anybody alive. And then there was the other hand, where you give up everything to the instinct of self-preservation. And you may think operating on instinct takes away your intelligence, but let me tell you, if you're the type of human being that I am, and God help you if you meet somebody who's worse than me, your intellect and empathy and instinct come together in an unholy fucking trinity that make you damn near unkillable. I mean, there's always the chance, you could just walk into the sight of a sniper. There's always the chance that there was that IED buried legitimately fucking years and years ago that one day somehow has survived and then short circuits and finally someone sets it off. Could have been a Russian landmine for all we would, know from the fucking 80s. But for the most part, when all these things come together in a human being who takes the worst, the best, and just lets it all come together like it wants to, your delusions and reality want to come together in some sort of neutral fucking meeting ground where everything is constantly changing. If you allow this to happen, you become infinitely more adaptable and infinitely more likely to survive. You don't... Like I said, I was terrified at every moment, but I was also terrified from anybody ever crossing my path because I knew if I would constantly interacting with people who were remotely hostile, I was just waiting for a good excuse to pump a fucking few rounds into them. I wanted anybody who was remotely hostile, I wanted them fucking dead. Really badly. But on the other hand, I really wanted them to just straighten up and just let... I wanted so badly to just go to one of our Afghan National Army guys who were attached to us and be, look, I know you have connections to the Taliban in the area. Hook me up, and I want to fucking talk to them. Because all I would tell them would be, hey, look, guys, just move somewhere else or just quiet the fuck down for the next 6 months. And you know what? They're going to pull us out of here because they're going to think we pacified the area, and you can go on with your lives. Because I know that no matter how many of you I kill, no matter what I do, I can't change things here. There's not enough of us. The higher command they have not changed the way they think since the fucking Vietnam War. There's no way that we're going to succeed in our mission here. The mission is impossible. The means that we're given are woefully inadequate. They're just, they're giving you all these fucking tools, like you got a nail, and I don't know, what's something that doesn't work with a nail? Like a banana, I know that's not even funny, but you got a nail and you got a fucking fruit. Orange, banana, whatever the fuck ever. And they're like, okay, drive this nail with this fucking orange into the steel girder. Make it happen. You're gonna hurt yourself. That's all that's gonna happen. Orange juice is gonna squirt into your eye. Probably gonna fucking cut yourself on the nail and get tetanus. Or that's just fucking way she goes. So if you're a veteran, this is all over the place. But I don't like writing everything down. Not yet. If you're a veteran and you come across my video, or if you're someone studying veterans, keep these two archetypes in mind. They're two different animals. You have the delusional, who's delusional because he's done things that are against his best nature, and he needs a way of coping with it without compromising that good nature of his. He has to go home and face his kids. He has to, these hands that he's killed people with, he has to use them to love his wife. He has to make so many of these things work. Whereas the one who rejects this delusion can embrace other delusions. Can. Maybe to get into that right now would be extraordinarily complicated. Often, when veterans let all these things come in, you know, they jump to religion, they jump to drugs or alcohol, they jump to so many different things that do not include the reality of the problem. What I hope is that if you somehow come across any of my, and stick with it and listen to me and any of it makes sense, you do not need to embrace delusion. You do not need to embrace false prophets. You do not need to embrace sensory stimulants. You don't need to embrace any of these things to deal with the terrible things that you've done. There is a way through. In the same way that if you were a generally good human being and you've done horrible things in the name of your country, remember how you achieved that. It was through extraordinary use of discipline. Extraordinary use of your higher power, your higher faculties. I've seen people move essential cities in a matter of hours. I've seen what people are capable of doing. I've seen what you're capable of doing. You are very capable of dealing with all of these things that you have done. Now, that leads to the question of, how do I do this? How do I, now that I've changed who I am, I've become this different shape, this different form, how do I squeeze this form back into the world that lies within this country? How do I do it? This requires more explanation, but I'd like to quote, I'll find the quote for it, but Sun Tzu's Art of War. If you've never read that book, find a good translation of it, and I've used it as almost a Bible for my whole life. When you're fighting an enemy in asymmetrical warfare, meaning there were no rules essentially, I know command probably told you to do the same thing every time, or they had some general layout of your decision-making process, and you were always to follow this. I didn't do that. I learned that sometimes I would do things that would be considered suicidal by our policies, but they worked because I was the only one doing them, and I do them totally random. I was able to avoid ambushes. I was able to avoid fucking IEDs. I was able to hit the enemy where they least expected us because I just didn't follow any sort of rules. I put myself... Calm down. How do you do this? How do you get back into society and back with the people you care about and all this? And how do you make it work? You are not a concrete being or entity. You look in the mirror and you see a human being, but it's just the surface. There's all these things that live behind your eyes, all these different forces that rise and fall and clash and move together and against each other. A human being, even with a name, is nothing more than an idea. You have no real form. You're a verb in a sentence. You're the action, not the object. Therefore, there is no limitation to what you can do. You can make it all work. Let's face it. The world and everything that happens is a mixture of order descending into chaos and chaos coalescing into order. And it's constantly doing this in every facet of life. You have to accept that you're just a part of that. And even when it's strange, when you magnify objects like a table, you keep getting down further and further and begin to see that everything looks the same. And even the further you look, it spreads out in patterns, but it all looks the same regardless. Like, it just seems to go on infinitely. And that's all you are. That's all. If there is a soul, then it's just the universe descending into itself forever. I haven't described how to practically apply this to life. But keep in mind, I have not yet mastered this. You have to start with theories. You have to start with other ideas. You have to... I'll end this to go into my next video with an idea that goes into my next video. I always believed in a higher power that concerned itself with our lives. I always believed in the Christian idea of God. But I mean, maybe not totally Christian, but I firmly believed in that there was a power looking out for us. Once, for a second, I finally entertained the idea that the higher power, that it was still difficult for me to knock out the idea of a higher power, but I tried to imagine that if that higher power existed, and it just was minus the human attribute of caring about what happens between us, all of a sudden, I was able to make so much more fit together. Like, these connections that had been severed, I refused to allow the connections to return to the way they were. I wanted them, if these different things fit together in a way that, one thing leads to this, leads to another thing. Like, it all had to make sense logically. And once I took out the human attribute of a higher power, I was able to get along much better. I need you to entertain ideas that you had never entertained before. I need you to delve into philosophies, religions, other people's views harder than you ever have. Empathy is the greatest fucking tool that human beings have. It's bizarre to me that it seems at least 50% of the population that I've ever encountered have no empathy, or very limited, and it blows my mind. If you don't have this, then if you don't have it, you won't know it. You'll think you will, but it's just a word. If you've ever looked into another human being's eyes and literally did not need to use any words to communicate constantly, then you might not have it. I think I just worded that correctly, or maybe incorrectly, but disregard. So, hopefully, you understand the two archetypes of ignorance. I fall in the latter. I do not shirk the facts of reality. Reality is all I am. Hopefully something a little bit more. Which I don't understand yet. So, I'm going to leave you with this. If you think you've tried everything, you haven't. If you think you've thought of everything, you're ignorant. You should know these things if you reflect on your past and remember all the ways that you've changed up until now. Do not become stagnant like some of these fucking people that you deal with. It doesn't help them. it sure as fuck will not help you. Don't listen to them. Don't pay them any mind. Just flow right through them. Just swim right by them. There's this... Nah. Alright. Thank you for your time. My next episode, whenever I get around to it, will be about why I fought for my country. You know, because I believe that's important. Maybe someday I'll do an episode about how all these tie together, but I'm planning on writing a book eventually, once I get all these episodes out. Hopefully, because I'm using this to organize my own thing, and, you know, if I never become popular on YouTube, I don't think I will. I really don't. But, this will at least help me organize, you know, something for a book, because I'm probably going to need some help. I used to be a great writer, but I haven't been able to write anything that makes any fucking sense since I've been out of the military, so... This is what this mainly is about. Alright, take it easy. Good luck. If you want, if you have a PS4, buy Bloodborne. May the good blood... May the good blood guide you. That's a tongue twister, seems like. Anyway, good night. Also, I peace of wolves. Carry on.